Bill, sit down. We need to talk. It was the way she said it, like she was hosting a charity gala, not detonating a landmine in our living room, that nearly made me laugh out loud. I didn't, of course. I sat, calmly, respectfully, like a man who didn't already know the punchline to the monologue she was about to deliver. The thing is, I'd been waiting for that exact sentence for weeks. Not hoping, not dreading. Waiting. You don't wait for a train wreck. You brace for it, predict it, maybe even step aside to enjoy the choreography of destruction. I'd been collecting whispers, shadows, misplaced receipts, forgotten objects, tone shifts, social smirks, and the strangest of all, a ceramic frog. We'll get to the frog. She perched on the edge of the couch, hands folded like a schoolgirl asking for forgiveness over spilled milk. And I played my part, upright, still, deadpan. I've been seeing someone, she said. There it was. Act 1. Scene I, the confession. I could almost hear an invisible audience inhale in dramatic unity. I glanced briefly at the bookshelf behind her. Not for effect. I just didn't want to meet her eyes. Not yet. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was loaded, tense like a wire about to snap. She mistook it for pain. I didn't want to hurt you, Bill, she added. But I can't keep living a lie. A lie? Interesting choice of word, considering she wore the lie like perfume lately. Something floral, something synthetic. Not hers. Still, I said nothing. Let her run. I think we've both felt the distance, she continued, wringing her hands just once for dramatic emphasis. I didn't plan for this to happen. You've been busy with work, and I felt invisible. Ah, there it was. Invisibility. The golden key in the lockbox of adulterous rationalizations. And yet, she never noticed I replaced the light bulb in her vanity mirror. Twice. That I left her car with a full tank every Sunday. That the basil she thought magically regrew itself had a little help from me every damn morning before I went to work. I finally looked at her. Not angry. Just observant. Like I was examining a suspect who thought the interrogation room was actually a therapy office. So, I said, slowly, you're telling me now because... She looked surprised. Maybe she expected rage. Or tears. Or even an apology. That's the thing about people who orchestrate their own downfall. They get so wrapped up in their rehearsed drama, they forget other people get to speak too. I just thought you deserved honesty, she said. I nodded. So generous of you. Her mouth tightened. She recognized the sarcasm, but she didn't know how deep it went. Do I know him? I asked. She hesitated. It was subtle, a micropause, but in that pause, my internal alarm confirmed it. She wasn't sure how much I already knew. His name's Graham, she said. You met him once. At that community fundraiser last fall. Of course. Graham. The guy who'd shaken my hand while overcompensating with a joke about salmon hors d'oeuvres. Graham, who mispronounced her name but lingered too long on her wrist. Graham, who somehow knew about our deck renovation project before I even mentioned it publicly. I nodded again, slowly this time. Processing. Pretending. That fundraiser, right? Wasn't that the one where you wore the green dress? Her brow furrowed. Yeah. Why? No reason. Just remembering how Graham kept asking about the catering budget. Seemed oddly interested in logistics. She blinked. He was helping organize things. Sure, I said. She shifted, crossed one leg over the other. A nervous tick, not a flirtatious pose. She thought she still had control of this moment. And I was letting her. Because the more she spoke, the more rope she gave herself. You have to understand, she said, leaning forward now, voice quieter, it's not just physical. He listens. He sees me. I raised an eyebrow. And yet somehow he missed the part where you're still married. She didn't laugh. Shame. That one was decent. Look, I'm not proud of how it happened. But I'm telling you because I want to move forward. Forward where? She blinked again. This time slower. The truth was she hadn't planned that far. She thought telling me was the hard part. She had no idea. What do you want, Bill? She asked. Do you want to make this harder than it already is? I leaned forward slightly and smiled, not kindly. Not cruelly either. Just deliberately. I think I want to hear what else you've lied about. Her face twitched, just for a second. That's when I knew she hadn't come clean. Not entirely. She came to present a curated version of her sins. The bare minimum confession, like a criminal offering up one stolen item hoping you won't find the rest. And that ceramic frog? It had moved. Twice. From the back patio to the sunroom. Then again to the upstairs guest bathroom. Always slightly rotated. Always positioned just so. She hated that frog. Always did. Said it was creepy. And yet somehow, Graham had the same one in his backyard. I saw it in a photo she didn't know I saw. That frog was never bought. It was carried. But I wasn't ready to reveal that just yet. No. I'd let her unravel herself a bit more. I checked the time and stood up slowly. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Thought I'd make us a drink," I said. "Because if we're doing confessions tonight, I might have one or two of my own." Her mouth opened slightly. And in that moment, I saw it, the exact second she realized she might not be the one holding the steering wheel anymore. And that was the first honest moment she gave me all year. I poured her a glass of white wine, the one she started buying after meeting Graham, though she insisted it was just a new phase in her palate. Sauvignon Blanc, imported, crisp, and unnecessarily expensive. She used to call it pretentious grape juice before her taste evolved alongside her morals. I handed it to her without a word, then walked over to the liquor cabinet and poured myself something darker. Something earned. The bourbon caught the light like it knew something she didn't. I took a slow sip. She still hadn't spoken. Good. She was calculating. Rehearsing a new version of her script. Adapting. That's what manipulators do when their expected outcome starts to slide sideways. But she didn't know I was 5 pages ahead, and I'd already read the spoiler. "You said you wanted to talk," I said, settling back in my chair. "So talk." She flinched, just slightly. I'd stopped playing my usual role, and she didn't like improv. She took a sip of wine, used the motion to cover her hesitation. "I'm not trying to be cruel, Bill," she said. "This wasn't about you. It was about me needing more." I smiled again, this time colder. "Is that what he offers?" "More." She nodded slowly, eyes downcast. "Yes." "And by more," I said, tapping my glass. "You mean what?" "Weekly hotel invoices? 2-hour Pilates classes that end with his socks in your glove box." Her head snapped up. There it was. The first crack. Not because I was wrong, but because she thought she'd buried the evidence. I leaned forward. "You forgot them. Twice. I moved them the first time. Second time, I just left them there. Figured maybe you were leaving breadcrumbs for me to follow." Silence. She didn't deny it. "Smart girl." "I told myself it was just business meetings," she finally said, her voice quieter. Then I stopped believing my own lies. "How noble." "Bill." "No," I cut her off. "You don't get to narrate this like a memoir." Her jaw tightened, and that's when something shifted. She wasn't going to cry. Not tonight. She was going to dig in. Control the wreckage. She mistook my stillness for surrender. "It's not just me," she said sharply. "You've been distant. You bury yourself in work. You barely notice when I'm in the room. And yet somehow Graham did." I finished. She stared. A long pause. A calculation. "That's not fair," she said, voice low. "Neither is lying for 4 months and coming clean only when the fantasy got boring." A flash of red crept into her cheeks. I watched it with interest. "You think you're so clever," she said, standing now. Her wineglass trembled just slightly. "But you're just predictable. Safe. That's what I got tired of." Safe. That word landed like an insult, but I tucked it away like a key. Safe men make dangerous enemies when they stop pretending they don't notice. "Then why are you still here?" I asked. She blinked. "What? If I'm so predictable," I said slowly. "So boring, why come clean now? Why not just pack up and go play house with Graham?" Her silence answered that for me. Because Graham wasn't ready. Or willing. Or maybe he wasn't even real in the way she imagined. Maybe he fed her lines in the dark and disappeared in daylight. Maybe he liked married women precisely because they could vanish when he got bored. Or maybe she needed me to end it, so she could play victim. I stood up too, slow and deliberate. "You think I didn't know?" I asked. She froze. "Did you ever wonder how the hotel knew your usual room before you even walked in?" Her lips parted, but no sound came. "Did you ever think it was strange your keycard always worked on the first try, even when the reservations were under his name?" The color drained from her face. "I called in a favor." I said casually, walking toward the kitchen island. You remember Martin. From college. Manages 3 of those hotels now. All it took was a single question. Who keeps booking room for 18 under rotating burner names with a female guest arriving before check-in? She didn't breathe. She didn't speak. And the frog? I added. The one you moved upstairs like it was yours. A flinch. I saw it in Graham's backyard. In that group photo from the retreat. The one your sister posted without cropping. Thought I wouldn't notice. Now she sat down fast. Like her knees gave out under the weight of realizing this wasn't a conversation anymore. It was a slow-motion execution. Don't, I said. I'm not done. There was no shouting. No table slamming. Just the slow grind of reality settling in. I walked to the hallway, opened a drawer, and pulled out the small wooden box she gave me on our 10th anniversary. She'd forgotten about it. Most people do when they stop meaning their words. Inside, receipts, hotel confirmation emails, recovered from a supposedly deleted folder, a cocktail napkin with Graham's handwriting, and, centerpiece of the display, a USB drive. I placed it gently on the table between us. What's that? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. I gave her the kind of smile that makes people nervous. That's part 2, I said. And it's not for you. I turned and walked away. I didn't need to see her reaction, because the next part wasn't about her anymore. She just stepped into a story I'd already been writing, and she was no longer the main character. She didn't follow me upstairs. That, more than anything, confirmed she knew she'd lost control of the evening. The woman who once shouted at me for leaving the dishwasher open now sat paralyzed at the kitchen island, staring at a thumb drive like it might start talking. If it did, it would have spoken her language, one built on omission, deflection, and curated truth. I shut the bedroom door behind me, not because I needed privacy, but because she needed to feel it, the weight of it between us. The silence no longer broken by questions or explanations. She had poured her confession out like it was a gift, and now it sat there, unopened, returned to cinder. The USB drive didn't contain the affair. That would have been too easy. Instead, it contained something far more delicate, her pattern. A neatly documented trail of inconsistencies, time gaps, financial anomalies, in one very illuminating spreadsheet. 2 months ago, while pretending to fix the home Wi-Fi, I noticed a file transfer on our shared cloud folder. She'd accidentally synced photos from her personal phone. Most were harmless, until I saw the one with the navy blue throw pillow. You wouldn't think a pillow could unravel a marriage, but this one did, because we didn't own it. And yet she was lounging against it, barefoot, wineglass in hand, the shadow of someone else just out of frame. I traced the pillow back to a boutique hotel in Chestnut Hill that specializes in discreet luxury. I called and posed as a wedding planner. Said I was planning a reception and wanted photos of their rooms. The navy blue pillow was featured in 3 of them. So was the custom wall art that peeked behind her shoulder in the photo. Room 305. Premium corner suite. I made a note. Then I started watching. Not just her, but the clock. Her routines. Her excuses. Her gas bills. The spreadsheet on the USB was detailed. Precise. It showed mileage discrepancies from her yoga studio, unaccounted for debit card transactions, recurring toll road fees that didn't align with her usual route, and one very specific charge. A $28.94 purchase at a hardware store an hour from our house. That was the anomaly that tipped everything, because she doesn't do hardware stores, not even for light bulbs. But that receipt showed duct tape, a small level, and mounting brackets. And guess what? A week later, her work friend Graham suddenly had a framed photo of them at a networking gala hung in his new apartment. His background on LinkedIn changed that same week, from a blank wall to a familiar shade of gray-blue. I connected the dots. And then I connected the wires. Literally. 3 weeks ago, I hired a guy named Luke, former AV tech. He owed me a favor. Installed 2 micro recorders into her car, one under the steering column, one beneath the rear headrest. Legal? Probably not. Useful? Beyond words. That same week, I found out about Monday lunches. She said she was mentoring someone from HR. Funny how mentorship sounds exactly like flirtation when you play back the audio. But the USB didn't contain the recordings. Again, too easy. What it contained were copies of invoices, payments Graham had made on his corporate card to cover client services, all falling on days she claimed to be with her sister, sick, or catching up on errands. Every one of them in her name. Every one of them documented. Because Graham wasn't just a lover. He was her co-conspirator. They were funneling money, using fake vendor accounts. I didn't figure that part out. A friend in corporate finance flagged the patterns when I jokingly shared the pillow story over drinks. He went quiet, then asked for names. Within 3 days, he sent me a file. Graham and my wife were the authorized contacts for 3 vendor accounts tied to a company that didn't exist 2 months ago. The company name? Willow Solutions LLC. Guess whose email was used to register the domain? Hint, it wasn't Graham's. That email and domain info were now documented. So were the fake invoices. So were the tax discrepancies. All in neat little folders, labeled by date. I walked back downstairs, USB drive still in my pocket. She was gone from the kitchen, but not far. I heard her in the sunroom, pacing lightly, probably rehearsing her next monologue. I didn't say anything as I entered. Just watched her stop mid-step. "You didn't have to humiliate me," she said, voice tight. I tilted my head. "I haven't started." She looked away. "Is this some kind of revenge fantasy?" "No," I said. "This is documentation." "For what?" I didn't answer. I let the silence press against her ribs. Finally, I spoke. "Do you love him?" She hesitated too long. "I don't know," she finally muttered. "Fair," I said. "He doesn't know you either." That one hit. Harder than expected. "Bill, please, this doesn't need to get ugly." "Oh, sweetheart," I replied, taking a step closer. "You invited Ugly to dinner when you registered an LLC with a fake EIN." Her mouth opened. Closed. I saw it. The realization that I hadn't just known about the affair, I'd followed the money trail. She tried to recover. It was temporary. He needed help building credit. I actually chuckled. "And you just so happened to help him by laundering 28 grand through a non-existent catering business registered to our home address?" That broke her. "You went through my emails," she snapped, suddenly indignant. I raised an eyebrow. "You used our Netflix password as your admin login." I didn't need a subpoena. Her eyes welled up, not out of remorse, but panic. She was cornered. And worse, outclassed. "I didn't want this to happen like this," she said, almost whispering. I believe her. She wanted me to scream, to cry, to beg. She wanted to be the one with the noble exit, the one who tried to be honest before everything collapsed. But I wasn't giving her that. Not even close. I turned to walk out, but paused at the door. "By the way," I said without looking back, "your sister's birthday gift? That designer bracelet? Bought on the Willow Solutions card. That one's already flagged by his employer." She froze. "They called him yesterday." Then I left her standing there, in a house that was no longer hers, in a story that no longer revolved around her. And the best part? She still thought I was only holding one USB. The next morning was silent, but not the comfortable kind. The house had that surgical stillness, like after a procedure that went longer than expected and left more tissue exposed than planned. She didn't come to bed. I didn't check where she slept. For once, we both agreed. Whatever this was, it wasn't worth pretending to salvage anymore. I made coffee, knowing the smell would reach her before I spoke a word. She always said she couldn't function without it. Maybe that was true. Or maybe she just liked having small rituals to justify staying. The familiar weight of the mug. The comforting steam. The illusion of normalcy. She walked into the kitchen 20 minutes later, hair tied back like she was going to war. I didn't look up. Just slid the second mug across the counter. No words. She stared at it. Still being civil? I sipped. "You're not dangerous enough for war. And not interesting enough for drama." That one stung. She didn't respond. We sat across from each other, coffee between us like neutral territory. I could see it in her face. She hadn't slept. She'd replayed everything. The receipts. The frog. The LLC. And the USB drive I left out, intentionally, before heading upstairs. She thought that was the whole of it. Neatly packaged. Final. It wasn't even half. "Do you want a lawyer?" she asked, her voice dry. "Do you?" I replied. A pause. "I'm not trying to be hostile," she added quickly. "But if this is about splitting things..." "It's not," I said, cutting her off. This isn't a divorce. That froze her. I watched her expression twist into confusion, suspicion, and very faintly, hope. She didn't get it yet. She thought maybe I wanted to reconcile. Start over. Go to therapy and cry in dim rooms with a mediator while we pretended this was salvageable. She didn't realize I'd stopped playing husband the moment she used our address for a shell company. No, this isn't a divorce, I repeated. It's a transfer of liability. Her forehead creased. What? You've committed fraud under my name, I said slowly. You've tied our finances to a company used to invoice fake vendors. That puts me on the hook. Her mouth opened, but I lifted a hand to stop her. So we're not splitting the house. We're not discussing custody of the furniture. We're talking about detangling your garbage from my name before the IRS decides we owe them something. I didn't mean to. That's the problem, I said, voice flat. You didn't mean to do anything. You just did it. And now I'm left holding receipts. She stood up, pacing now. I can fix this. I can't. No, I said, leaning back. You can't. But you're going to try anyway. She stopped, turned. I slid a thin manila folder across the counter. She didn't touch it. That's a step-by-step outline, I said. You're going to unwind Willow Solutions. Close the EIN, dissolve the entity, and submit a letter to his employer disavowing any claim to the fake invoices. Her eyes widened. You want me to write them? You already did. I just want you to admit it. She stared, then dropped her voice. You're trying to ruin him. No, I said. He ruined himself. You're just the sidekick who brought snacks. Her jaw tightened. He has a family. You should have thought of that before turning our living room into his invoice address. She sat down, hard. Her mug clinked against the counter. What do you get out of this, Bill? Just tell me. I smiled again. That tired, calculated kind. I get my name back. My credit. My life. And after that? I paused. That depends, I said, on whether you tell your boss the truth. She blinked. My boss. You didn't think she'd notice the uptick in networking events? That HR wouldn't flag your sudden expense report pattern? You've been watching my job? I wasn't the only one, I said. Your company got a tip last week. Anonymous email. With attachments. She stared at me, color draining. I warned them not to act immediately, I added. Told them it might be a misunderstanding. Gave them a reason to delay the audit. Her hands were shaking now. You blackmailed my employer? No, I said. I gave you time. She sat still, breathing shallow. Then I added, but that window's closing. Her eyes met mine. For once, there wasn't anger, or guilt, or even shame. There was fear. You want revenge, she said quietly. No, I corrected. I want accountability. She reached for the folder, opened it, then froze. Because tucked inside, beneath the steps and bullet points and timelines, was something she hadn't expected. A photo. Not of her. Not of Graham. A photo of a third person. A woman she hadn't seen in years. And that's when her hands really started shaking. Because now she understood. I wasn't just cleaning up her mess. I was peeling back layers. And she just realized that I hadn't started with her. I had started with him. And I had one more name on the list. She didn't say her name. She didn't have to. Her fingers hovered over the photo like it might vanish if she blinked. I watched the realization spread across her face in slow motion, recognition twisted with dread, memory strangled by implication. She knew exactly who it was, and she knew what it meant. It took her almost a full minute to speak. You think she has something to do with this? Her voice cracked right in the middle of she. I leaned back, arms folded, taking her in like a painting I'd finally started to appreciate. Not for its beauty, but for the hidden brushstrokes. For what it tried to hide. I don't think, I said. I know. She didn't sit. She couldn't. She paced again, 3 short steps, back and forth, like a caged animal trying to remember which direction led to safety. But there wasn't one. She moved years ago, she said. She's not part of this. Funny, I replied. Because her name's listed as an emergency contact on Graham's HR paperwork. Under a different last name. But the same birth date. Same phone number. Same voice, too, when I left her a message pretending to be IT support. That stopped her pacing. Cold. You called her, she asked. No, I said. I baited her. Big difference. She didn't take it. But she ran a search on me 2 hours later. Logged in through a work portal she shouldn't have used. Left a trace. "Bill, what are you doing?" she whispered. "That's the question you should have asked 2 months ago," I said. "When she showed up in the background of that rooftop selfie you sent your cousin. The one you claimed was taken at team drinks." I zoomed in. Right shoulder. Leopard print jacket. "You cropped her out on Instagram, but forgot the raw version lived in your iCloud." She lowered herself into the chair again. This time slower. Like her bones were catching up to the reality her brain was choking on. Why would she? Because he's not her first. Silence. I let that hang there. She's done this before. Different names. Different men. Same pattern. She warms up the target, he does the dance, and somewhere along the way, the target's finances take a hit. Sometimes it's slow. Sometimes it's clean. This time, it got messy. Because Graham isn't just your boyfriend. He's your project. But you didn't know that, did you? She shook her head, eyes locked on the table. She's his ex, I said. But not legally. Never was. And yet somehow she got access to his apartment lease, his company card, even his emergency contact form. You don't pull that off unless you're still pulling strings. She never mentioned him. No, but she mentioned you. I stood and walked to the cabinet. Grabbed a second folder, thinner, but more dangerous. I placed it next to the first. She referred to you as too curious. I found that in an old chat log from an encrypted platform he thought was private. Pulled from a corrupted backup off his work laptop. IT never really deletes anything. Now she looked up. What did she say about me? She said, if she starts asking questions, clip her wings. Gently, at first. Make her feel like she's the one holding the leash. Her hands moved to her lap. Still. She played both of you, I said. And you, congratulations, played right into it. Why didn't you just come to me? She asked suddenly. Why not just tell me what you found when you found it? That almost made me laugh. Because you weren't ready to hear it, I said. You would have defended him. You would have told me I was paranoid, jealous, trying to sabotage your growth. You think so little of me? I think exactly enough. She looked wounded, but not surprised. And what now? She asked. You've built your case. You followed the money, exposed the puppet master, humiliated me. What's left? I sat down again, slow and deliberate. What's left, I said, is the part where you decide who you want to be when this goes public. Her face went pale. I'm not going to jail for this, she said, voice trembling. Not if you cooperate. You're bluffing. No, I said, tilting my head. I'm offering you a way out. I'm not your enemy, Bill. True, I said. But you were my liability. And now you're my leverage. She blinked. Leverage for what? For her. And now the blood drained completely from her face. Because now she understood. This wasn't about revenge. This wasn't about catching a cheating spouse. This was about hunting someone smarter than both of us combined. Someone who moved pieces on the board like she'd carved it herself. And I needed bait. What better than the woman who'd thought she was in control? I leaned in, voice low. She doesn't know you're compromised yet. And if you play this right, she won't. Not until it's too late. Her hands clenched. You want to use me, she whispered. No, I said, standing up. I want to redeem you. And then I left the room again. Because the next move wasn't mine to make. It was hers. And I needed to see just how far she'd go. To get out from under the shadow of the woman she never saw coming. She didn't speak to me the rest of the day. Not a word. Not a glance. Just moved through the house like a ghost trapped inside her own mistake. Every creaking floorboard under her feet sounding like a confession. That night, I heard her moving papers in the den. Softly. Like she thought I'd be asleep. But sleep was a stranger now. I lay there with the bedroom door slightly cracked, listening to her peel apart her life file by file, memory by memory, realizing she hadn't just betrayed a husband. She'd stumbled into a game 3 levels above her pay grade. The next morning, she left a note on the kitchen counter. Meeting her at 1. Don't follow me. No name. No address. But she knew I'd know where. There was only one place she could meet her and not cause a scene. The Atrium Cafe on 7th, just off the courthouse square. Public enough to prevent fireworks, quiet enough for manipulation. I let her go. I didn't tail her. Didn't bug her purse. Didn't call Luke for another mic. Because this time, I didn't need to. She took the real device with her herself. I waited. Patiently. The kind of patient that smells like dry rot and ticking clocks. By 4:35 p.m., she returned. Not with tears. Not with rage. She didn't slam doors or accuse me of playing games. She walked in with a plastic shopping bag and a bruised look in her eyes. I didn't move. Just sat on the couch, flipping through channels I didn't care about. Waiting. She dropped the bag in front of me. Inside, a burner phone, a printed letter, and a keycard. Burgundy. Embossed with the logo of a private co-working space uptown. Locker 12B, she said quietly. I didn't take anything. Just read. She didn't know I recognized the key. It was hanging off her bag when she reached for her wallet. She still thinks I'm stupid. I picked up the card. Flipped it over. Faint pin marks, almost invisible under the lamplight. A date. Next Tuesday. 6 p.m. Graham. I asked. She nodded. She's sending him there. To collect paperwork. Her word. I studied her face. And what did you tell her? I cried, she said with a sharp, bitter chuckle. Told her you kicked me out. That I was scared. That I needed someone, her, to believe me. I even let her console me. I couldn't help it. I laughed. You played the victim? I was the victim, she snapped, then immediately softened. But now I'm the variable she forgot to calculate. I stood slowly and walked to the hallway closet. Pulled out a black duffel I hadn't touched in years. From a time before the desk job. Before suburbia. Before I thought loving someone meant assuming they'd never put a knife in your back while asking for a hug. She followed me with her eyes, arms crossed tightly across her chest. I didn't know yet if she was ready for what came next. But I knew one thing. She had let something slip. She called you curious, I said, zipping the duffel open. She told him to clip your wings. But she underestimated what happens when someone already knows how to fly. Are you planning to confront him? No, I said. I'm planning to watch him panic. I pulled out the blueprint I'd printed 3 nights ago. The floor plan to the co-working space. Locker 12B was in the innovation room, a private annex built for startups and trust fund babies who needed to feel edgy while sipping cold brew. No cameras. No staff after 5 p.m. She watched me highlight the hallway, the exit, the exact placement of every motion detector. What's in the locker? She asked. I looked at her. Measured her. I don't know, I said. But I know it's not paperwork. You think it's leverage? I shook my head. I think it's the kill switch. And whatever it is, it's not meant for us. It's for Graham. Her face paled. Then why send him? Because she's cleaning up. And she's not sentimental. We both stood there in that slow silence. The kind that happens when 2 people know something bad is coming but have no choice but to move toward it. She'll suspect me, she whispered. She already does. But now she's got confirmation. You gave her something she'll use against you. Something small, but traceable. Her eyes widened. The cafe receipt. I left it on the table. I smiled. Exactly. You wanted her to suspect. I need her to move, I said. And she won't move unless she feels the board shifting beneath her feet. We stood still for a long second. Her hands trembled, just slightly. I never thought I'd be part of something like this, she said. You weren't supposed to be. And now, I said, picking up the burner phone, you either vanish quietly, or you play the next scene like your life depends on it. Her lips parted, but no words came. Because the truth was, neither of us had fully processed what we'd stepped into. Not yet. This wasn't a love triangle. This was a maze. And the woman we both thought we'd forgotten, she was standing at the center, holding the walls up with both hands, waiting to see which rat reached the cheese first. I looked back at my wife, and for the first time in months, I saw it. She wasn't acting. She was afraid. And she wasn't the only one. Because if my plan failed next Tuesday at 6 p.m., she wouldn't be the only one who disappeared. Tuesday, 5:52 p.m. I sat in the surveillance van half a block from the building, listening through a wireless signal I shouldn't have had access to, watching a hallway feed that shouldn't have existed. The innovation room wasn't supposed to be monitored. That's what the co-working brochure said. That's what the floor plan implied. But I knew better. Because 6 years ago, I helped install a discrete monitoring system for a private security firm that was looking for non-traditional deterrence. This was one of the prototypes. They paid me in silence and shares. I never cashed out. Until now. Locker 12B sat flush against the far wall, ordinary, matte gray, indistinguishable. but it pulsed with tension like it knew what was coming. At exactly 6:03 p.m., Graham entered. Alone. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, but diminished. He moved like a man who once thought he understood the rules, only to discover the rulebook was in a language he never learned. I watched him swipe the keycard, hesitate, then open the locker. Inside, a sealed envelope and a small metal tin. He didn't touch the tin. He just stared at it like it might bite. Good instincts. He pulled out the envelope, opened it, and skimmed the contents. His face didn't change, but his hand tightened. Subtle, but visible. His thumb flexed. A tell. He closed the locker. Didn't put the envelope back. He was about to leave when his phone buzzed. He read the message. Stopped. Turned. Then put the envelope back into the locker. Interesting. I picked up the burner phone. Dialed a preset number. No ring. Just one vibration and a click. Did you see that? My wife's voice whispered. She was in the building 2 floors up. In a borrowed office with mirrored glass. Not part of the plan, her idea. He put it back, I said. What changed? There was a pause. Then she said, check his left pocket. I zoomed in. His hand brushed something there. A second envelope. Slightly bulkier. He swapped it, I muttered. Clever bastard. But why? She asked. Because someone told him he was being watched, I replied. He's feeding us a decoy. She didn't answer. And that's when it hit me. Did you tell him? What? She whispered, sharp. Of course not. But there was a crack in her tone. Just one. I didn't press it. Not yet. At 6:11 p.m., Graham walked briskly to the exit. No calls. No pauses. Gone. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then, slowly, I picked up my second phone, the private one, and dialed the number I hadn't used in years. 1 ring. 2. Yeah. A woman's voice. Casual. Familiar. Detached. Your boy just pulled a switch, I said. She didn't reply immediately. Then, I'm not surprised. So the original plan's off? Wasn't a plan. It was a test. A beat. Of who? I asked. Another pause. Of her. The line clicked. I stared at the receiver. My wife wasn't just caught in the web. She was the test subject. And she didn't know. I climbed out of the van and walked toward the building. Slowly. Carefully. My breath steady. Upstairs, she waited in that borrowed office, unaware of the call I just made. The woman on the other end? She wasn't just an ex. Not of mine. Not of Graham's. She was his handler. And this wasn't about love. It was about access. Blackmail. Digital leverage. And one woman's ability to pull strings without ever stepping into the light. When I reached the floor, my wife opened the door before I could knock. Her eyes searched mine. Well, he's gone, I said. Left a fake. Walked out clean. Then we failed. No, I said, walking past her. He did exactly what she wanted him to do. She closed the door. Slowly. I don't understand. I turned to her. You will, I said. But first, I need to know something. What? When you saw the tin, I asked, did it look familiar? She blinked. I didn't get a clear look. Because I did, I said. It had a crest on the side. Silver, faint, but I recognized it. What was it? Wesleyan. I paused. That was your mother's maiden name. She went still. She's dead, she said. She died 5 years ago. No, I said. That's just the name she buried. And in that moment, I saw it click behind her eyes. The real puppet master? It wasn't Graham. It wasn't her. It was someone we both thought we buried. But some legacies rot underground. And others wait. She stood there like gravity had turned traitor. Her mouth parted slightly, but no words came out. Just that empty, flickering silence people get when their entire timeline is being rewritten in front of them. My mother, she finally managed. That's not possible. She was dead, I said, quietly. You sure about that? Her hands twitched. Not like she was scared, more like she suddenly couldn't remember how to hold herself together. I went to her funeral, she snapped, finding her voice again. You went to a closed casket funeral, I corrected. The coroner signed off on it, yes. But there were holes. The death certificate was issued by a local authority not in the national database. No autopsy. Cause of death listed as undisclosed medical complications. You were too grief-stricken to notice. You were meant to be. She took a half step back. You think this is some kind of conspiracy? No. I know it is. I walked to the window, pulled down the blind just halfway. Streetlights. Traffic hum. The world outside still pretending it made sense. She vanished for 10 years before that funeral. No postcards. No photos. And then she dies with no paperwork, no digital record, no trail. I turned to face her. She didn't die. She converted. Converted to what? To a new identity, I said. She resurfaced. Quietly. Smartly. I've been tracing her for weeks. Every lead was cold, until the crest on that tin. She didn't move. Not an inch. But I saw her knuckles whiten. You're saying my mother is behind this? She's the architect, I said. This wasn't about Graham. It wasn't about you. This was about accessing me. She frowned. What are you talking about? She knew you'd fall for him. She studied you. Knew the exact buttons to press, the words to feed him. You weren't the prize, you were the tunnel, the access point into my world. Into my systems. You think I was used? She asked, almost scoffing. You think you weren't? I snapped. Every detail, the affair, the financial trail, the LLC, it was engineered to look like amateur fraud. Something internal, messy. Something I'd try to cover up quietly. And now her arms dropped to her sides. Jesus. She's after something, I said. Something I buried years ago. She sat down. No drama. No noise. Just dropped into the chair like her spine gave up. Bill, she said slowly. If my mother, if someone, was using me, what do they want? I opened the duffel and pulled out the black leather case. Clicked it open. She recognized it instantly. That's your old terminal drive, she said. From the encryption work. You told me it was wiped. I told everyone it was wiped, I said. Because the only thing more valuable than encrypted data is the assumption it no longer exists. She looked at it, then at me. You think she's after that? No, I said. I think she already has it. Silence. She never needed to steal it, I said. She just needed to clone it. I pulled out the second burner phone. Typed a code. A small green light on the drive blinked once, then turned red. Data breach, I said. 3 nights ago. Not from the device. From offsite. Remote access protocol. Same cipher I used when I worked with Sandwell Systems. Same one I taught someone else. Her voice was suddenly very, very quiet. My mother, she whispered. Didn't she take night courses in computer science? Back when you were in high school? I asked. I thought she dropped out. She didn't drop, I said. She vanished. Took what she needed. Reemerged under a different name. Probably with 10 aliases by now. She rubbed her temples. But why now? Why resurface after all these years? I looked her in the eye. Because she needs one final piece. And you were supposed to hand it to her. Through him. Through Graham. She breathed in, slow and jagged. But I didn't. No, I said. You hesitated. You got emotional. And that's when she started adjusting the plan. She's going to cut me loose. She already has. There was a pause. Then her voice changed. Then let me help you bury her. It was the first time in weeks I believed she meant it. Not because of guilt. Not because of regret. But because she just realized she was never the main character in her own story. She was the hand being moved. Now, she wanted to be the one moving pieces. I reached into the case and handed her the flash drive she once tried to steal. This is your next move, I said. She'll try to intercept you. Let her. And when she does, I smiled faintly. Tell her the drive is a decoy. She raised an eyebrow. Is it? I stared at her. Do you want to know? Her answer came without hesitation. No. And that's when I finally knew. She was ready. By Thursday morning, we were ghosts in our own home. We stopped pretending there was furniture. We stopped pretending there were meals. She moved from room to room like every wall held secrets. And she wasn't wrong. I had systems wired into that house she never knew about. An old habit from another life, the one before software consulting and golf club memberships. Back when I spent most of my time in basements, not boardrooms. Back when I was paid to find what people wanted hidden. Now I was using it to pull apart someone I used to call family. At 6:12 a.m., I got a ping. Motion alert. Locker 12B. Same building. But not Graham this time. It was her. Not my wife. Her. The woman with a dozen aliases. The one who sent condolence cards for her own stage funeral. The one who raised a daughter like a blueprint, so well, in fact, that her child didn't even realize she was just an access key dressed in flesh and wedding rings. She moved like a librarian, calm, composed, surgical. But the way she scanned the room, like it owed her something that gave her away. I watched the feed as she pulled out the envelope Graham had swapped. She didn't even open it. She just smiled. She knew it was fake. She expected it to be fake, which meant she wasn't just playing catch-up. She was orchestrating the tempo. I recorded everything. Sent a still frame to the burner phone I gave my wife. Captioned it with one word. Confirmed. 15 seconds later, I got her reply. She'll go for the backup next. She thinks I don't know where it is. She was right. We left just enough breadcrumbs for her mother to follow. The decoy flash drive led to a buried cache my wife remembered hiding when she was 19. A false lead, planted months ago. Wrapped in nostalgia. Padded with guilt. We knew she wouldn't resist it. That afternoon, we watched her mother dig up the past, literally. She drove out to the old farmhouse outside Pinewood. It used to belong to her great-uncle, now abandoned. The crawlspace hadn't been touched in years. Except we'd touched it 2 nights ago. Left her the gift she came for. A pristine, encrypted drive marked W, Systems Archive, 2014. Her golden ticket. She took it. Smiled. Left. Didn't even check the checksum hash. Rookie move. But she wasn't being sloppy. She was being confident. And that meant one thing. She had another play we didn't know about. I told my wife that over dinner. If you could call 2 bowls of cereal in a half-lit kitchen dinner. She's letting us see her moves, I said. My wife nodded. To make us think we're in control. What's the endgame? I asked. She looked at me, expression unreadable. You. There was a silence. Then I said what I'd been avoiding for days. I need to tell you something. Her posture stiffened, but she didn't interrupt. That original drive, I said slowly, the one she thinks she's trying to clone, it doesn't just have corporate data. Her eyes narrowed. It has personal files too. From before we met. Including client logs. What kind of clients? The kind who pay in cryptocurrency and don't use real names. And why would you keep that? She asked, calm but slicing. Because the last time I erased something for someone, they tried to make me disappear too. And I decided if I was ever going to die, I'd go down with leverage. She shook her head. So you're no better than her. I never claimed I was. That landed. Hard. But not unfair. We sat in the dark, the hum of the fridge louder than our breathing. Then she said, so what happens now? I pulled a small black envelope from my back pocket and slid it across the table. What's this? A name, I said. The final piece. The only person who's seen her face and lived talk about it. She opened the envelope. Read the name. Froze. You've got to be kidding. He used to work with your mother. Back in '09. He was listed as deceased in the Panama breach files. She stared. But he's not. No, I said. He's in Philadelphia. Working under a fake name. Runs a jazz club. You think he'll talk? He already has, I said. He just doesn't know it yet. She looked up, eyes narrowing. You bugged him. I bugged everything, I said, finishing my cereal. We just needed a trigger to get him to talk. What was the trigger? You. And now she understood. Every move we'd made had been observed. By both sides. The real question wasn't who was listening. It was who thought they were controlling the narrative. And as I stood to leave the table, I said one final thing. She's going to make contact tomorrow. Who? My wife asked. Your mother, I said. But not as herself. She didn't reply. Because deep down, she knew. When the devil knocks. She never uses the same face twice. She called at 9:17 a.m. Not from a number. From a tone. 3 short pulses on the burner phone we'd set aside and buried beneath the laundry basket weeks ago, waiting for a ghost to remember how to dial. My wife picked it up with steady hands, but I could see it in her eyes, the flicker of recognition. Not from the sound. From the timing. She's not asking for a conversation, she said. She's summoning me. We drove in silence to the meet location, an unremarkable corner of a riverside park, where joggers and dog walkers wouldn't notice 2 women talking. The kind of place you could say anything, and no one would remember your face. I stayed behind. A bench across the road, black hoodie, sunglasses, earbuds pretending to play music. At exactly 10 a.m., she appeared. Not her, the woman we'd come to expect, but someone else. Shorter, grayer, dressed like a retired librarian, complete with orthopedic shoes and a crossbody canvas bag. But when she spoke, the voice was unmistakable. "Claire," she said. Not sweet, not stern, just surgically neutral. My wife didn't flinch. "You're using your own name again?" Claire asked. "You're not the only one who can borrow identities," her mother replied. "Besides, we're not playing anymore, are we?" "I wasn't playing to begin with." Her mother smiled at that. "No, you were acting. There's a difference." I watched. Every gesture, every weight shift. My wife kept her hands loose at her sides, just like we rehearsed. "Don't clench. Don't stiffen. Let the puppet master think the strings are still connected." "I assume you have the drive," her mother said. Claire reached into her coat pocket and produced it, held it out, but didn't release it. Her mother's fingers brushed it, then stopped. "You hesitate," she said. "Why?" "Because I want something first." A pause. Then her mother laughed. That tight, measured laugh that says you're still not in control. "What could you possibly want?" she asked. Claire's answer came like a scalpel. "His name." That stopped the air. I leaned forward just slightly. Heart slowing. Not racing, slowing. Like the body getting ready for surgery. Her mother tilted her head. "His name? The man you replaced. The real Graham." She blinked once. Twice. Then said, "You were never supposed to remember that." "I didn't," Claire said, "until I saw the frog." I froze. The ceramic frog. The one we thought had been just a misplaced object. A clue tied to surveillance. But it wasn't. It was a trigger. Claire took a slow step forward. "That frog sat on our porch when I was a kid. You told me it was a guardian. You only ever gave one to people you trusted." Her mother's smile faltered. "You put one in his apartment." Silence. "And that's when I realized," Claire continued. "I hadn't met Graham in 2022. I met him in 2004. He used to bring you flowers. He fixed our roof one summer. I called him Uncle Graham." The air was razor thin now. Her mother didn't answer. So Claire pressed. "What happened to him?" The woman looked down at the drive in her hand, slowly retracted her fingers. "He disappeared," she said finally, "because he became too attached." "And the replacement?" "Willing, controlled, disposable." My hands clenched on the bench. So she had engineered the identity from scratch. Not stolen it, built it, groomed someone to wear it. Claire's voice cracked just slightly. "You used him, like you used me." Now the woman looked up, and her expression, finally, showed something. Not guilt, not regret, just irritation. "You were always emotional," she said coldly. "It's why I couldn't use you for more serious work. You break when things get personal." Claire held out the drive again. Her mother took it. Then Claire said, "I lied. It's not a decoy." Her mother froze. "What?" "I figured you'd think it was fake. So I gave you the real one." The woman blinked, her fingers tightening. "And before you ask," Claire said, "yes, it's tagged. The moment you connect it, your entire relay server goes dark." My heart kicked. That wasn't the plan. She wasn't supposed to tell her. I stood, started moving, slowly, casually, like a man walking a dog he didn't have. The woman stepped back. "You're bluffing." Claire didn't move. "Try me." Then the woman's eyes flicked left. Her hand reached into her coat. I tensed. No weapon, just a phone. She looked at it, froze. Then, for the first time since we started this, she panicked. Because what she saw on that screen was everything she thought she still controlled. Shut down, one by one. Relay, banknote, proxy, cloud drive, vanished. "Who else did you involve?" she hissed. Claire didn't answer. Because she didn't have to. We'd already erased the map. This wasn't a chess game anymore. It was a demolition. And the fuse had already been lit. 2 parts remain. And one ghost is still unaccounted for. The sky broke open at 4:06 a.m., not with thunder, but silence. That electric, predatory silence you only hear when the house breathes differently. I was already awake, sitting on the staircase in the dark, holding the burner phone like it was a detonator. Claire was asleep upstairs. Or pretending to be. She hadn't spoken since the park. Her mother had vanished the moment the system crash triggered. No retaliation. No message. No final play. That's what made it worse. She was regrouping. We both knew it. I dialed a number I wasn't supposed to have. It rang 3 times before the voice answered. Neutral. British. Flat. Has she made contact? No, I said. Which means she's preparing something permanent. The voice exhaled. She's run before, but never without an extraction plan. If she's truly isolated, she'll torch everything, I finished, including people. You two need to disappear. She expects that, I said. We're not running. A pause. Then, what's your play, Bill? I looked at the black envelope again. The one I hadn't let Claire see. Not the one with the jazz club. The other one. Thicker. Older. Scorched at the edge from something I'd barely survived once before. I opened it. Inside, a photograph. Claire is a child, sitting on a bench, feeding birds. Her mother's hand rests on her shoulder. But it's the background that matters. A man in a beige jacket. Half his face is visible, the other half blurred by motion. But I'd know him anywhere, because he'd recruited me once. Years ago, back when I thought I was the predator. His code name had been Sable. He wasn't supposed to be real, but there he was. And he was watching Claire, in a photo from 2005, for years before I met her. 8 years before her mother died. I called the voice again. Activate Sable. The line went cold. You're sure? I'm not asking, I said. Understood. Click. Claire came down 20 minutes later, wrapped in the old gray hoodie, eyes hollow, holding something in her fist. I didn't speak, just waited. She sat beside me on the stairs, opened her hand. A coin. Worn. Ancient. This was in the lining of her purse, she said. I took it. Examined the edge. Greek. Not Roman. Stamped with a mark I'd seen only once, during a failed decryption job in Istanbul, 15 years ago. That job ended with 2 dead assets, a corrupted archive, and an instruction. If you ever see the coin again, erase everything and run. I handed it back. She left it for you? I asked. No, Claire said. She dropped it. I looked at her. You're sure? She never drops anything. I stood, my mind sprinting. She didn't leave it as a warning. She left it as a signal. To someone else. Go upstairs, I said. What's happening? She's not coming for us, I said. She's bringing someone to collect us. Claire grabbed my arm. You said the systems were down. You said she's exposed. She is, I said. But she's not alone. That's when the street light outside flickered, and a car pulled up. Unmarked. Engine off. Lights off. But I could see the outline of the man inside. Not her mother. Someone taller. Broader. Wearing the beige jacket. I couldn't breathe. Because he hadn't aged a day. Not one. Is that him? Claire whispered. I nodded. She opened her mouth to speak, but I grabbed her wrist. Don't. Just listen. He stepped out of the car. No hurry. No weapon. Just a black case in one hand. He walked to the porch. And then, calmly, he rang the doorbell. Once. I opened it. He stared at me like we'd just left a conversation unfinished 15 years ago. Sable, I said. He tilted his head. Hello, Bill. His voice was warm. Friendly. Like an uncle. Do you know why I'm here? No, I lied. He smiled. I'm here to return something. He held up the black case. Claire stepped forward. What is it? He turned to her and said, You. She froze. What? You're not a target, he said. You're a delivery. To who? He looked at me, then back at her. To yourself. She didn't understand. Neither did I. Until he opened the case. Inside. A photograph. Not old. Not grainy. Taken last week. Claire. At the park. Standing next to her mother. Except this Claire was older. Maybe by 15 years. The timestamp on the photo? 2037. Claire stumbled back. What the hell is this? Sable stepped forward, still smiling. Your mother didn't raise you. She cloned you. The hallway felt like it cracked in half. I grabbed the case. There were more documents. IDs. Biometric logs. Genetic sequences. A journal entry. Second iteration shows accelerated emotional response. Recommend behavioral isolation. Full identity merged by phase 3. Claire was shaking. None of this is real, she said. It's some deepfake, some scare tactic. But I knew that paper. That handwriting. It was mine. From 2010. A black project I'd ghost consulted on, codenamed FOXTWN. I stared at Claire, and she stared back, realizing she had no idea who she was, and the woman who raised her was just running a field experiment. Part 12 will be the final reckoning, the truth, the revenge, and the cost of becoming your own ghost. She didn't speak for a full minute. Not a scream, not a question, nothing. Claire just stood there, staring at the photo of herself. Older, colder, dressed in a future that hadn't happened yet. Her hand hovered above the edge of the case like touching it would make it permanent, or detonate it. I didn't stop her. She needed to see it all. Because in that moment, everything I'd suspected about her mother, about Graham, about the surveillance, the back doors, the grooming, it all collapsed into something simpler. She wasn't trying to erase evidence. She was trying to erase a version of her daughter. Sable closed the case, clicked the latches like sealing a coffin. I was told to retrieve her, he said calmly. Clean handoff. No drama. I stepped in front of Claire. You're not taking her. He didn't blink. That's not your decision anymore. Then you came for the wrong version, I said. And before he could process that, Claire took the coin from her pocket and flipped it. It hit the hardwood floor, bounced once, and landed tails up, a carved sigil facing the ceiling. Sable froze. His smile dropped. You activated it, he said quietly. Claire's voice was ice. She always told me never to use it unless I want it out. You don't understand what it triggers. I don't care. Because we had already rewired the response path. The original signal was meant to alert a failsafe, extract the subject, wipe the systems, burn the evidence. Claire's mother left the coin in the bag not as a threat, but as a leash. A final command. But she underestimated us. We rerouted the beacon. Claire activated a signal that didn't call the extraction team. It called the ones watching them. Sable's phone buzzed. He looked down. His face changed. He took one slow step back. What did you do? Claire didn't answer. I did. You're not the handler anymore. Outside, tires screeched. 3 black vehicles boxed in his car. Unmarked, silent, efficient. Sable turned to run, but by the time he hit the porch, 2 men were already there. He didn't resist. He knew better. As they dragged him past me, he muttered, They'll come after you next. I leaned in. Let them. I'm done hiding. The door closed behind them. Silence. Claire sat on the steps, breathing hard, knuckles white. She looked up at me. She created me. You knew. I suspected. Not like this. Am I even real? You're the only version who said no. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We just started. Over the next week, we dismantled the rest. Claire's mother went dark. No trace. The data she'd built for over a decade, blackmailed, leveraged, sold, it all dissolved. Every account tied to a ghost name collapsed under audit triggers we'd embedded months ago. Claire didn't speak of her again. Not even when we reached the safe house. Not even when she opened her palm one night and showed me the second coin. The one she never flipped. I kept it, she said. Why? She looked at me. To remind me that I was engineered for control, but I chose not to obey. That was the last thing she said about the past. She built a new ID, changed her face, burned the hair dye box herself. We stayed in motion. Never the same place twice. Not for long. But the message was sent. To all of them. The ones in shadows. The ones who write new people like code. The ones who groom lives like assets. Not this one. Not anymore. She wasn't the daughter. She wasn't the puppet. She wasn't the experiment. She was the variable they lost control of. And that's what makes her dangerous.